Morning everyone, Cahlen here, and I am setting off on a on foot, barefoot, multi-day adventure where I'm not going to be, basically I'm going to be trying to do everything as minimally as possible. So I don't have a backpack. What's on my back right now is just my bedroll. I have some shoulder straps which I can basically attach to anything I want. I really don't like having a lot of weight on my shoulders. It's uncomfortable, and also when weight's higher up, you're kind of more off balance and you're less able to like react to things like branches and maybe, having to deal with an animal, a little bit more able to use my arms to fight back, that kind of thing. So basically I've got, I don't know how well you guys can see this. I'll put my staff down for a second. So I've got basically almost everything in my belt. So this is the Wizard belt. I've also added, this is a big drop leg bag, which is where a lot of the weight is. There's another one on the other side. That's what's carrying my food. And I've also got my water bottles and a whole compartment. Anyways, I'll show you more about this, or you can get a better view of it once I get to camp, or maybe in a video before I go home in a few days. But basically, I have everything I need to survive until my food runs out. Even, I would say, in 3 seasons. So I have everything I need to stay warm until winter. And then at winter, I would need a couple of extra things that I did not bring with me, which I would actually need my backpack to be able to carry. So anyways, this is just kind of like an experiment trip to see what I can get away with. So one of the things I did not bring was my tripod. So I basically have to hold the phone for everything I record, which is mostly fine for everything, except if I need to like show you something that I have to do with both hands, but I probably won't have to do that too much. So anyways, I'm just coming out to kind of on my way somewhere else, passing by the spring, which I have guerrilla gardened. Made several videos about that, and we're gonna see how the sunchokes are growing. And you can see these trees right here. I guess the sun's kind of making it hard to see, but they're basically cottonwoods out in the middle of the desert, which means spring. So it means we're almost there. So we're at the spring. There's much less water than usual. But you can see it's definitely a stream which is flowing. And here are some sunchokes. You can see these are much shorter than the ones back home. They're maybe not even a foot. And I think that's because the elk come through and eat them. You can see they're very green on top. This means these just came out. And it looks like they've got damage. See right here? Something's just coming and biting them. And ungulates love to eat sunchokes, so this is a great food for them. And there's another one over here. You can see the footprints of all the elk. Here's another good example of elk eating them. So I'm actually going to go a little bit farther to another spring where I've also planted some sunchokes, which I've never checked back in on, so we'll see how that's going. That place gets, I think, more elk than this place, so there's a good chance things aren't faring too well. And I wanted to mention, clothes are one of the things that you have to carry, and they can be pretty heavy. And, if you can be wearing your clothes while you're traveling, that means you don't have to carry them in a backpack. And so they're kind of optimized in their space distribution. The clothes are distributed across the surface of your skin about as perfectly as you could get something with weight. And so I basically left today before sunrise so that it would be mostly cool, so I don't have to be wearing less clothes and have them attached to me in some way. I don't really have a good way to attach clothes to myself. I guess I could just tie them around my waist or something like that. But also I'm wearing less clothes. I didn't bring all of my clothes. I'm basically just wearing my wool base layer with the polyester synthetic waffle layer on top. And I guess technically we'll look at this a little more closely with my bedroll, which is my bed, my shelter, and also my coat and my raincoat, all these things. So that over the top of my wool and the second layer, I think makes this basically a 3-season type thing. So I do have more clothes. I have a fleece jacket and, you know, kind of like work pants, but I'm not sure those are really necessary. 3-season at least. Ow, I just stepped on something. I had a little spike in my foot that I had to get out, which is something that happens a lot when you walk barefoot through the desert, especially when you're not looking where you're going because you're filming a video. But honestly, I've been basically walking barefoot 60% of the time, I'd say, at least, for about 2 years. And you just stop caring about those types of things. A few months ago, me and Jesse were climbing over something, both barefoot, and you had to jump down. And I jumped down, and one of my feet went right on top of like a piece of a cholla cactus, which if you know what a cholla cactus is, you're like, oh boy, that's not good. Cahlen's full weight down on a cholla cactus into his foot, and Jesse was like, oh my gosh. You know, he's been doing barefoot for a long time, but he's like recognizes that other people maybe get freaked out in a situation like that. But I just basically laughed and sat down and yanked it out and made a big dramatic production about it, but you know, just for fun. But basically it was just like nothing. And then he's like, oh, do you want to go home? And I was like, no, and we just kept walking. You know, my foot's bleeding out. Anyways, you get used to it. And it's one less thing you have to carry. You know, lifting your feet over and over and over again. You know, you may think shoes don't weigh a lot, but you know, after a long day, it makes a big difference. So you hear that? There's a pretty loud stream over there. Actually, it's just a spring that's flowing downhill, and so we'll go check that out in a minute. I was walking through this little spot right here. You can see all these branches, and they caught on my glasses and then flung them. I was like, uh-oh. And you know, it's kind of hard to find glasses in a situation like this. So I had to take off everything and like get down on my hands and knees and look around. So for a survival situation, it's not a good idea to have to wear glasses or contacts. But like, I have other videos about how you can walk back myopia, but I still have a ways to go. So we'll see how that goes if I get that far enough so I don't need glasses by the time things get really bad where there's no glass stores at all. So anyways, after I did that, I came back to pick up my stuff, and I noticed there was a little path that goes in here, and there's basically a big space to sleep, which is sheltered by these trees here, which is going to be important because it's going to get hot out today. So I'm like, oh, this is a nice little spot. I think this is where I'm going to set up camp, at least for right now. We'll see if that's where I sleep tonight, but I think there's a pretty good chance. So I'm going to move all my stuff in there, and then we'll go check out that water. You know, when you find grass growing in the desert like this, there's definitely water around. Look, there's water right there. So water flows, makes a bunch of noise right there. I can't really see because of all the grass, and it keeps going down. It's quite a ways down. You can kind of see it. So I don't like to carry water with me because water is one of the heaviest things that you can be carrying. So I basically just keep these empty bottles. I have 2 of them that go into my belt pouch, and I can use this to fill with water. I can clean that water with chlorine dioxide, which I'll probably do in a second here. And also I use this to eat my meal, so I'll also show you how I do that. So first we're going to get some water. Hopefully we can do it without 2 hands. There we go. So I'm walking back downhill. Just want to show, it looks like a nice place to walk, right? Barefoot. Well, you still got to keep your eyes out, because that is a prickly pear cactus, which you could easily step on. So being barefoot definitely makes you more vigilant. Okay, here's basically everything I brought with me. This is the belt, and this is what I carry my phone in. That's one of the drop leg bags that has some of my food. There's another one that has the rest of my food, and then that's my bedroll. So let's see how I do with one hand. Okay, so this has basically all my fire starting stuff. So there's some Vaseline, cotton balls soaked in Vaseline. There's a expandable bellows for blowing on a fire. And a ferro rod. And here is a Leatherman multi-tool, which is sometimes hard to get out. There we go. So this thing is extremely useful. I have a video about that. In fact, it's called the Extremely Useful Leatherman, I think. Something like that. Okay, then I have another knife. This is basically a survival knife for doing bigger tasks and for defending myself. This is my carbon fiber penny whistle. It's the case it sits in. Here's one of the water bottles. Here's another water bottle. Here's a revolver. Here's my chlorine dioxide. 2 bottles. Right, you have to have the 2 bottles. We're going to be using those in a second here. And then this is just a big compartment that has it has the front part and the back part. And here I have socks and a beanie, like soft things. So I can basically, also serves as my pillow. I can lay against this at night. And also these things will be right up next to me if I need any of them in an emergency situation. And then this back one, we'll actually take a look at this. Is my solar panel, which I need to set out. Some 2 long, I need to get some shorter ones so they're not as heavy, but USB cables for the various charging I need to do. First aid kit, glasses, and like the stakes and rope for putting up a shelter. Okay, I need 2 hands for this, so you get a makeshift tripod with horrible lighting. So this is the chlorine dioxide. This is the acid. So I'm going to use 6 drops per bottle of water. Well, I'll do it one at a time. So 6 drops of the acid, and then 6 drops of the sodium chloride solution, and that will cause it to start turning yellow. And basically, it's turning into sodium chlorine dioxide. The acid is turning the sodium chloride into chlorine dioxide. Kind of give it about 20 to 30 seconds, shake it around a little bit, and then pour it in the bottle. And also, I like to clean out the cap. And this is going to clean this water. And it's not going to pull out like contaminants like metals and pesticides and stuff like that, but it's going to make sure that there's nothing biological in there that's going to hurt you. Also, if I start to get sick or something like that, you can use chlorine dioxide to basically solve most ailments, and especially food poisoning, basically almost guaranteed to solve that. So I'm just going to do 6 more for the other bottle. So I got a little bit of a wound, basically scraped off some skin here while I was walking. So I'm going to disinfect it also by pouring some of this on it. Also clean off some of the blood so I don't smell so yummy to the cougars. Alright, found a nice sunny spot to put the solar panel. And I'm just going to plug it into the phone. Okay, let's talk about food. So these are the drop leg bags. Gonna just open them up. They can hold a lot of stuff, like they got lots of different compartments, but these are all empty. Basically the only thing that I brought is what's in this main thing here. So inside of here, well, I'm gonna have to put the camera down. Okay, I got them opened up a little bit. You can see this is totally open. This is a waterproof dry sack, which is put inside of this thing. So this thing's not totally waterproof, but this is. So even if it's raining really hard, my food's not gonna get wet. And inside of there, I have some oats, basically, organic, what are they called? Rolled oats. And then this is what it looks like when it's wrapped up. Basically just go like this and unroll it. And then inside of this one, we have a mixture of various things, but it's basically a chocolate drink. And so I can add that to water by itself, and that's good food that tastes really good. But if I add it with the oats, which is what I'm gonna do, then it's a more filling meal. So I'll just show you how I fill one bottle. So first of all, the water needs to be about to this point, maybe 2/3 full or so, because you need room for all the other stuff. Take 3 scoops of this. And then 1 scoop of this. And I'm going to do that 2 more times, so there's going to be a total of 9 and 3 of this. And the reason I do that is to kind of get them a little bit mixed up together. So I'm just going to add those off camera. Put the lid on, and then I'm going to shake it up real good. And I'm probably going to come back and do this a couple of times just to make sure nothing's getting clumped together. But at this point, I mean, I wouldn't say it's quite ready to drink. I could drink it right now, but ideally I let the oats soak in that water for at least an hour, if not more. And even better, let this get warm, right? So I'm going to actually leave these out in the sun to warm things up, just because it's more pleasant to drink warm things. So it's probably around noon. So I went ahead and drank both of those bottles of oatmeal, basically chocolate oatmeal, and like I'm super full. But I think that, and normally I think that would pretty much be all I really needed in a single day if I was just sitting around all day. Since I was hiking for a good part of the day today, I'm probably going to want more a little bit later. So I went back up to the spring and filled my water bottles back up. And while I was there, I was checking out this tree here, which is a Russian olive, I believe, which actually has food in it. So if we look on the ground underneath, you can see all these little things. These are the Russian olive fruit, and you can eat this. There's a decent amount of carbohydrates right there. There's a seed in the middle, but you can eat that. So I've got a few of them here, and they're really all over the place. And normally they're kind of a thing that birds prefer to eat, not really a human food. Take a lot of work. But here's what the leaves look like, if you're curious. And it also has thorns on it in certain parts. So you can see right here, that's an example of the thorns. There's not a huge amount of them, but you do have to be careful when crawling around this thing. So the dogs followed me out here this morning, and I tried to leave before they got up and were let outside, but I got a little hung up. And so they were let outside right as I was walking out the gate, and so they ran after me. So they will go home after a while, but they didn't get breakfast, I don't think. So they're probably getting a little bit grumpy and thinking, every time I stand up, they're like, oh, are we going home now? I wonder how long till they give up. How long are you going to stay here until you go get some food, huh? How long? So I'm going to go ahead and give this a try here. You kind of just skim over the seed with your teeth. I wouldn't say it's the most delicious thing ever, but if I was starving, I'm sure I'd like it. So some people wonder what I do all day, you know, when I'm living on the farm, or especially when I come out into a place where I am now, where there's not really anything that I could do that's really of any significance. You know, I can't work on the internet. I can't interact with any people. I can't really build a farm right where I am. I mean, I could build a shelter, and that's something that some people like to do, is they like to go out into the wilderness and build shelters. But like, my strategy doesn't really require a structure which you can't take with you. Like, my strategy is about having, like, the tarp, for example, is what I've been living under for almost 2 years, for over 2 years. Not all of it was under the poncho, the raincoat, but basically that's really all I need. So anyways, I don't really have a whole lot to do. I mean, basically I cleared out some of the sticks above me so I'm not poking my head. I'm bleeding right here. You got to be careful about that kind of stuff. Be careful it doesn't go into your eye or something like that. So anyways, what do I do with my time? So basically, I like to get as comfortable as possible. So what I do is, I find it to be most comfortable to not be wearing clothes, as you can see, especially when it's warm out. Jonathan Rosland was commenting on one of my videos that in 2 years, because I was talking about how I'm going to be going minimal. I'm minimalizing everything. And then on this trajectory, he's basically saying that in 2 years, I won't even have undergarments anymore, and it'll just be Cahlen, and you'll see how my dongle dangles. So I think that's accurate, except that it's actually already the case. Like, if I'm not around people, if there are not people around, and it's warm enough, then I'm not going to be wearing any clothes at all. So I'm just kind of that kind of person. I don't have any trouble with nudity. If there were women around, if there were other men around, it's like, it's not really something that is a big deal. I understand some people it is a big deal, but I'm just letting you guys know I don't have a thing about seeing other people naked. It's not like a big deal. So anyways, what do I do? So basically I have a very large library of audio, like recordings of other people, and I also have a lot of books, but I don't do very well with reading. I learn through audio. So basically I have hours and hours and hours and hours of lots of information, basically all the information you need to know to figure out what's pretty much going on in the world. And I have that all on my phone, on my SD card. And I also have it on another SD card, and I also have it on my laptop, and I also have it on 2 different servers, right? So it's just like, I'm not going to lose this information. Anyways, so that's basically what I do. I listen to that stuff. And I basically sit here, cross-legged on the ground. I won't prove that. But sit here on the ground and listen to stuff. Basically, always take in new information. And also, even if you were to go through all the information, it's just like, it's always good to hear the same thing again. Even just a second time right after, but also if you've taken some time to digest it internally and also taken new information and evaluate old information and then listen to it again, and you'll get what they were saying so much more. So basically you could probably feel an entire apocalypse of sitting around waiting for everything to chill out again before you were like, okay, I don't need to listen to any of this at all anymore. And if you got to that point, you know a lot of stuff. So anyways, that's basically what I do. I sit here as comfortable as possible and listen to things. So that's my ideal world. And that's where I take myself as much as possible. So next to me I've got a new batch of clean water, my clothes, a belt within hand's reach. Then I still got my bedroll here and the food. And I'm finding that it is nice actually to have the 6-foot long USB cable, because the sun's moving throughout the day, so it's like the shorter your cable is, the more you're gonna have to get up and go and move it, right? But if you could just leave it way out in the sun and you can get way into the shade, that works pretty good. And that panel pretty much keeps my phone charged, right? And of course it depends how much I use it, but basically I'm at 84%, after it was last charged last night, I think, and it was like at 90% right? So basically I've kept it pretty much where it was, using it, recording all these videos that I've made today so far. And yeah, pretty good. So I'm not, and then also I'm listening to things, but if the screen is off, that it takes very little battery to listen to things. So you could very easily listen to things all day long, as long as you had that thing out in the sun. So works pretty good for me. When it gets more into the middle of the day, it can be good, especially if you're not in shade, to have clothes that you can put on. And actually this outer layer, even though it's black, because of the way it's built, it's very, very breathable. And right now, like, the wind is just blowing right through it and keeping me cool, even though, you know, the sun is like right on me in the middle of the afternoon, in the middle of the summer. Also, hat is extremely important. So anyways, I just came out here to get warm and to drink the second of my second round of hot chocolate oatmeal, I guess. And I just want to say that this is a kind of a newish thing that I'm trying, is the mixing of the actual whole rolled oats with the chocolate mix that I usually make. And I think it's working out really, really well. It's easy to make. You don't actually even need to heat it up. And you can drink it really quick, and it makes you feel really full. And it tastes really good. Like, this is going to be my fourth one today, and I'm looking forward to drinking this. So, and I've been drinking this exact concoction for about a week now, but basically some variant of this type of hot chocolate situation for probably a couple years. No, more than that, actually. Anyways. So the current recipe, I have other videos talking about the recipe, but the recipe now has been updated for the chocolate portion. Let's see if I can remember everything. It is 6 parts cacao powder, 6 parts coconut flour, 6 parts basically oat flour, but I recommend buying rolled oats and grinding it yourself because those are partially cooked already, which is a good thing. By the way, everything is organic here, everything. And pea protein. So pea protein is one of the best vegan proteins that give you the most amino acids, right? It's not as good optimally health-wise as eating meat, but it's pretty darn close to it, okay? And it's pretty nice. It goes really well in a smoothie. So those are all 6 part, and then everything else that I'm going to list except the last one is one part. I think that's right. Yes, I think that's right. Okay, so we have sunflower lecithin, acacia powder, psyllium husk powder, spirulina, chlorella, stevia. Oh my gosh, there's one more, isn't there? I think that's it. I think I got them all. And then there's about a half of a whatever measuring thing you're using of Ceylon cinnamon. That's something I just started trying, which I really like. Ceylon is the healthy cinnamon. Okay, so don't get the other kind. Normal cinnamon is not Ceylon cinnamon. And then basically a little bit of bromelain powder. And bromelain comes from a pineapple. It helps you digest things. And basically what I'm finding is that even if I don't heat up the oats in the water, they basically get to a kind of almost oatmeal type consistency really quickly, as if they were being cooked. And that wasn't happening before I started adding the bromelain. So it seems like the bromelain is really helping to make it ready more quickly and probably make it more easily digestible. So you're going to get all the good proteins and amino acids that you could, basically more than you normally would have using just your base digestion. So I think that's going pretty well. You do have to be careful about not putting too much bromelain in because it can be irritating to your mouth and your digestive system if you've got a huge amount of it. So anyways, I'm thinking this is basically the perfect survival food. You can get rid of, you don't need a pot and pan anymore. You can basically drink everything out of your water bottle. And I don't even need really 2 of these, right? I could just have one of them and just be close enough to water that I can continually refill it. And because it soaks so quickly with the bromelain now, it's basically, I was worried that I would have to space it out over many hours, and I like to eat all my meals ideally in as short a time as possible. But it seems like with the bromelain, I'll be able to just scoop it, leave it for 10 minutes, drink it, scoop it, fill it, leave it for 10 minutes and drink it and keep going until I'm done with my eating for the day. hopefully in a, you know, eventually getting back to like kind of where I was last winter of basically eating in a 1 hour window again. So anyways, I think it's the perfect survival food. The only issue I have with it at the moment is that the oats will run out well before the chocolate does, because I'm doing 3 times more oats scoops into the water than I do the chocolate. So I just have to think how to solve that problem. It's getting to be dinner time for this guy and for Shadow, who's also still here. And they didn't eat breakfast, and they still haven't gone home yet. So if it gets to be like an hour past feeding time and they haven't gone home yet, I'll probably kind of have to walk them home. So while we wait for Charlie to decide our fate, let's take a look at the actual bedroll, because I think this is pretty amazing. And if you think about the different aspects of this and how it all kind of really works together, I think you'll appreciate how it really helps minimize everything. So basically there are 2 straps, just simple straps, kind of, here we go, just this kind of a strap. There's 2 of them. Just roll everything up into it, and then you can attach these shoulder straps to it. And these shoulder straps even have a little thing that goes across them, which is useful to hold them even more secure. All right, I'm gonna put the phone down to undo all this. Okay, so it's unstrapped. So this is my sleeping pad, and this is the bottom side of my sleeping pad that has the Gorilla Tape, which is meant for all weather and actually gets sturdier the more UV light it receives. Okay, so this stuff's pretty amazing for a lot of different purposes. It works great as the bottom of a sleeping pad, and it also protects everything in the bedroll while it's rolled up, while I'm walking around with this attached to me, right? So sticks and twigs are going to hit this instead of this, where you can get holes. See, these are holes that I've had to patch, right, in the past. So anyways, it's all rolled up like that. First I roll up all the clothes. So this is basically what I call the wizard's robe, okay, because you can take this on, you can wear this whole thing as a poncho. So it's basically your winter coat, your protection. So the bottom layer maybe more complicated. It's less complicated than maybe it seems like when I'm trying to explain this. Okay, so basically the bottom layer here is like a blanket and a coat, okay? But it's in the shape of a poncho, so it has a hood in the middle. Now right now it's zipped up to be in sleeping bag mode, so that I can crawl in here and the whole thing is confined, right? Now I can unzip the whole thing, and that's how I wear it as a poncho. And I can also zip it halfway, about 2/3 of the way down, and secure it there, and it becomes more like a quilt, right? So it's like a blanket to lay over me, and that's kind of easier to get in and out of. But it's if it gets colder, you're going to want it more like this. Okay, so this is a sleeping bag and a coat, and it has a toggle on it in all 4 corners, which fits into the grommet of these other 2 things. So this middle one, let's get this. Let's talk about the outer one first. Sorry about the focus. I don't know why it's not. Okay, so this is the poncho. So this is basically the raincoat, and also what I had been sleeping under for two years. Okay, so this basically, it's the same exact shape as this. This is called the Swagman's Roll, okay, by Helicon Tex. This is made by the same company, meant to be connected to it exactly in this way, because it also protects the sleeping bag from rain while you're sleeping in it. So it's like a bivy sack as well, okay, but not quite as secure because it's open on this one side. But it does have some, so this side down here has, so it'll snap to it, so it'll hold it together, but it's not going to be waterproof coming in here. So anyways, my adaptation to this is to add another type of tarp underneath, which is almost exactly the same dimensions, just luckily, which has a silver or aluminum reflective layer right here, okay? So this has 2 purposes. It's going to keep the heat in, and this makes a huge, huge difference. It's going to keep the heat in when I'm sleeping in the cold. Also, keep in mind that there's a lot of 5G and radiation coming from satellites in the sky Okay, so this protects you not only when you're sleeping, but if you're wearing it while you're walking around. Okay, so this is basically my sleeping situation. You know, I could put the poncho up and have it over me as a shelter, but there's not really any point to do that. It doesn't rain enough here, and when it does rain here, it doesn't rain for very long. I would be totally fine, even if it rained all day long, honestly. I would just have to be under this thing the whole time. So then of course, you notice the sleeping pad only takes up half, right? Because I cut it in half. Otherwise, it's too long in my opinion. It gets too bulky. And I'm going to show you kind of how I made that. I have made a video about that as well, but I'm doing an adaptation of that in a couple of days. So basically, you can see this is where the hood is, right? And so the sleeping bag coat hood comes up through that reflective layer because I cut a big hole in it and sealed it up with that same type of tape on the edges so it's not, you know, cutting in and not ripping. And then I pull that up through there and then kind of cinch it into the poncho's hood, and now it's secure in all four corners and in the middle. And then this is basically my bed, right? Which I could sleep in 3 seasons. Got all my stuff up here and a pillow. It's perfect. Hey Charlie. Charlie, what are you gonna do? Do I have to walk you? I got a bad feeling about this. So it's past feeding time and the dogs are still here, so I think I'm gonna have to walk them back home to make sure they actually get to eat today. I'm gonna try something new since it's still hot right now. I don't want to be wearing my wool layer. I'm gonna try folding it into the actual bedroll. So you see I got it laid out there, and I'm just gonna roll it up. I can't show you the rolling because I need 2 hands. Okay, that worked pretty well, and doesn't really seem to have affected the size hardly at all, not in a noticeable way. So maybe I could actually put quite a bit more clothes in there or other flat things. So that's an idea for the future. Got out that gate 1 minute too late, and now I have to go home instead of sleeping outside tonight. Well, I guess I'm sleeping outside tonight, but you know what I mean. So it's probably 90 degrees out here, and I'm walking with, you know, smaller than usual load, but it's still a load. And I'm wearing all black clothes, but I actually still feel really comfortable, and I'm not even really sweating that much. There's like a little bit of moisture in my armpits. I can barely even feel it. And, you know, it could easily be a lot hotter, and I don't think I'd be having a problem. So these things work really well. You just take the wool off from under it, and now you can wear it in the heat. Well, I'm back home. Didn't get any footage of the dogs eating after a full day of no food, because as soon as we almost got home, they both ran home before I could get there. So basically they got fed, but that's good. They're not starving anymore. And I'm pretty happy with how light this is. It's really comfortable to walk with this, but I don't know if I'll make it my permanent solution, because again, I need to be able to survive also that 4th month, winter. And so I think it's better to have a single load up out that I use for season rather than having multiple that I go back and forth with. But we'll see what happens. So hopefully this video was useful to you. If you enjoyed it, perhaps share it with someone who you think would enjoy it too. And I'll see you guys later.